The Braves beat the Tigers last night after 5 scoreless innings from Martín Pérez. But with Spencer Strider returning this weekend, does he still have a rotation spot? Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, a production of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Lindsey Crosby, founder of BravesToday.com, a daily newsletter about the Atlanta Braves. I want to talk about facing Tarik Skubal tonight and just how difficult that's going to be for the Braves and what they're going to need to do to get to the 2-time reigning Cy Young winner. I want to talk about the injury updates we got yesterday. Walt Weiss went through just about every single Braves injured player and what the status was of those guys right now and when to expect them back. But before we do all of that, we got to talk about last night's game because Martín Pérez getting the start opposite Casey Mize. Casey Mize isn't in the game very long. He leaves the game with what ended up being left groin tightness when he was trying to field a ball. I think he's going to be fine. Javi Baez is not going to be fine. He left the game midway through on an awkward play at first base where he was trying to avoid a tag, and so he slid, but he slid really late. His knee and ankle kind of caught the bag and had to be carted off the field. So he's not going to be okay. We'll find out more about that hopefully today. But Pérez gave the Braves 5 scoreless innings. And being completely honest, it didn't feel like the sort of dominance that you would say when a guy pitches 5 scoreless innings. He allowed only 2 hits. He walked 4. And this was just, he throws all 3 fastballs. He has a really good changeup. And he throws the occasional curveball. And he just did a really good job of mixing all of those pitches last night. He got 7 whiffs on the changeup. Like, the changeup was legitimately a weapon. But outside of the changeup, it was just Martín Pérez doing a lot of mixing all 3 fastballs and locating well and keeping guys off balance. And, like, there is absolutely value in that. That is definitely something that is useful. And we've now seen him make a couple trips through the order and not be a liability. And I think that's really all you can ask for from what came into the year legitimately as probably your number 9 option for starts. Like, if you start the season thinking about the depth chart, it's obviously Sale, Strider, Schwellenbach, coming into the spring training. Sale, Strider, Schwellenbach, probably Grant Holmes, Ronaldo Lopez, Bryce Elder. Joey Wentz was the guy they were signaling was going to be the next man up as your 7th starter. Jose Suarez was going to be in the pen and was going to be a spot starting option, and he's the first guy they went to when they needed a spot starter. And then Martín Pérez. He was your 9th option entering the season, and he's now sitting there 2-1 with a 2.22 ERA. Now, we have to clarify, that is a little bit misleading just on the number based on the batted ball profile he's allowed and all of that. The expected ERA here is a 4.58. The field and independent pitching is a 4.43. So he's produced a low 2s ERA, but everything that he's done, like the things he's actually doing, says he should be closer to a mid-4s ERA versus a low 2s ERA. And I feel pretty confident in saying that he's probably not going to stick in the rotation once these guys start coming back. We'll get to this more in the second segment, but the team changed their mind on Spencer Strider after I recorded yesterday's episode and said he's going to be back this weekend. So you've got JR Ritchie in the rotation, starts tonight. Spencer Strider will be back this weekend. You've got to make some moves. They used Didier Fuentes last night in relief. He pitched 2 innings, and Walt Weiss indicated he's going to stay up for now. That could always change down the road. They could decide later that, hey, we're gonna option him back down when Strider's ready, because the only optionable arms you have are JR Ritchie and Didier Fuentes. That's it. Nobody else who's currently on the roster has a minor league option. Dylan Lee does have a minor league option. He's on paternity leave, and they did that, I think it was 2 seasons ago, and regretted it. They needed him for that 2 weeks he was gone, so they're not going to do it again. And this is now kind of we're coming up on the third series. Colorado's that third series where the rotation's kind of in flux. They've got a lot of options, and they're going to figure out what to do. But to me, it feels very clear that Martín Pérez is going to have a job at the minor league level. But it's probably not going to be in the rotation. And again, he's not been bad this year. I mean, 2.22 ERA. But that is something where it looks like he is going to regress just based on the significant difference between his actual and what all of the inputs say he should be producing. When it's more than 2.5, when it's more than 2 runs difference, it's hard to assume he's going to maintain a 2.22. You can outperform your peripherals for a while based on how you're doing it. You can also underperform your peripherals for a while based on how you're doing it. I'm thinking about Aaron Bummer, always has a lower FIP than an ERA because he's generating a ton of ground balls. And he's usually, last night excluded, not giving up home runs. But it feels like, because we've seen them do this recently, Martín Pérez is going to become a long man out of the pen. And I don't know, the easiest thing to do to preserve as much depth as possible is to move Didier Fuentes back to Gwinnett when Strider comes back. If you option him back down, which that'll be the third time they've optioned him this year. You can only option dudes 5 times. That'll be the third time they've optioned him down this year. If you do that, then you now all of a sudden, and this gets kind of nuts, you have Jose Suarez in the pen as a long man. You have Didier Fuentes in the pen as a long man. You have Carlos Carrasco in the pen as a long man. And you can't move on from any of them without a DFA. While I don't hate the idea of DFAing a Jose Suarez or Carlos Carrasco, especially if you can get Carrasco to re-sign and go back to Gwinnett and continue being that mentor he's been down there, the option that preserves the most depth is moving Perez to the pen. Because when you look at what he's doing, and I talk about how he could regress based on the inputs, there's a surprising amount of blue on his StatCast page. The things that he is good at doing. He is good at not walking guys. 6.6% is 77th percentile. He is good at not allowing barrels. 5.8% is 70th percentile in baseball. He is good at getting chase, and a lot of that comes on the changeup and when he throws the curveballs. He spots the changeup very well. And so it's a 32% chase rate, which is 67th percentile. But even when they chase, they're not always missing pitches. His whiff rate of 18.5% is 12th percentile in baseball. His strikeout rate of 15.4% is 15th percentile in baseball. It's really weird to see that his average exit velo is worse than average. When guys hit balls, they hit them hard. They're just not getting barrels out of it. He's not overly great at getting ground balls. 40.6% ground ball rate, 40.6% hard hit rate. Both of those are below 50%. But yet his barrel rate's so good. And I really don't completely understand it. It feels like guys are, and when you saw this last night, it feels like guys are getting quality swings and they're putting these balls in play. But it's not he's not getting the ground ball, but he's not giving up a fly ball that would be a home run, right? He's given up a liner at a guy or he's given up something with like a 5-degree launch angle, a line drive. It's not a ground ball. It's right to somebody, but it doesn't count as a ground ball, but he doesn't also give up a barrel. It's an odd profile, and I feel like there's something that's going to give. Is it those line drives going between fielders instead of two fielders? I've talked on here before, having talked to major leaguers, aiming a hit of yours any more specifically than that way or that way is not really something that that hitters can do, even in the majors, right? Guys can't reliably say, I'm going to shoot this line drive between the first and second baseman, right? They can aim that side of the field, but they can't reliably hit a target over there most of the time. Pitchers are even less able to aim a hit from a batter at a specific fielder. So giving up all those line drives, it feels like that's something that could regress. I see why you would say he's the guy that's going to go into the pen. And you're in this weird place. I'm going to write about this later this week. You need quality lefty relief behind Dylan Lee. You need another quality lefty reliever. You've got Jose Suarez. You've got Aaron Bummer. You've got Dylan Lee. We saw Bummer give up the homer last night. He's given up, a couple bombs now. We saw Jose Suarez struggle in the 10th inning the other day. I don't think either one of those guys can be trusted as this second leverage lefty, right? I think you can use Bummer as like a ground ball guy. And even then, we saw he's been giving up a couple homers. He's been bad in that department this year. But you also can't, Perez doesn't have any special ability to get ground balls. And I feel like you still need to find a leverage lefty. Perez's best use feels like as a long man out of the pen who can flex in and take a start for you, right? You can use him for 3 or 4 innings to cover after reliever or after a starter if they leave early. But then you can also turn around and say, hey, we've got, a doubleheader coming up next week. You're going to get a start. Or, hey, we don't have an off day and we want to bump Sale guys an extra day of rest. We're going to throw Elder on regular rest. And the next week we want you to start. And he can give you 5 innings. That feels like the best use of Martín Pérez. And so I think when Strider comes back this week, that's what you're going to see happening for Martín Pérez. He'll have a job. He'll be on the major league roster. I just don't think he's going to stick in the rotation. And part of that's because they've already shown once they'll pull him from the rotation and use him in relief if they need to, which they did last week after the short Didier Fuentes start. In just a minute, let's talk about those injury returns. Again, the Strider thing and how that happened, as well as what we heard about Hurston Waldrep and what we heard about Spencer Schwellenbach. We finally got an update. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Walt Weiss addressed the media before the game last night, as he does literally every game. That's the great thing about the majors as compared to the minors, college baseball, all of that, is how much the manager talks to media members. And so the information you can get from that. Walt Weiss gave a couple different updates. The first one was Strider is done with rehab. And again, explaining what happened yesterday with this, I talked to somebody on Monday night and they said, the source told me, hey, Strider's, they want Strider to make another rehab start. And checked on Tuesday morning, that was still the case. So I went ahead, said it on the show, put it out on social media, whatever. And at some point in time yesterday, a conversation was had, and the Braves decided, nope, we're going to bring Strider back this week in Colorado. Strider may have initiated it. He may have said, I don't want to go another rehab start. Walt Weiss may have said it. It may have been a response to Dylan Lee's going on paternity. We're calling Didier Fuentes up for the bullpen, so we don't have him as a starting option this weekend. I don't know. Things change. And so Strider will be back at some point in time this weekend. Based on when he threw, being on Sunday, the first day he would be available would be Friday. I don't think they're going to use him in the series opener simply because if they do that, If they use him on Friday, then Grant Holmes would not have pitched in a week. And so it feels like as long as they're going to keep Grant Holmes in the rotation, which as of now there's no indications they won't, especially with Lopez already in the bullpen, Grant Holmes would be your starter on Friday. And then they could do Strider or Sale on Saturday and the other one on Sunday. Both those guys pitched last Sunday. So Saturday's 1 extra day of rest. Sunday is 2 extra days of rest. So again, I don't know what the order would be. You could do Sale for one, Strider for the other. But Saturday, Sunday, if you throw Sale and Strider on Saturday and Sunday, they both line up to then face the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium the next weekend. So for Spencer Strider, and the quote from Walt Weiss is what he said yesterday, quote, "We just need to pick our spot as to when we're going to put him in there. But yeah, his next start will be with us." So there you go. They don't know what it's going to be yet. And typically, like I remember last series, when the game notes came out on Sunday morning, which Braves Comms sends the game notes out to us, those of us on the media mailing list, that's typically where the rotation gets announced. And when we got the game notes, it was still TBD for all 3 games of this Tiger series. And then by the time Walt spoke to the media, I think it was right before the game. Maybe it was after the game. It was after the game. That's right. It was after the game. They had decided on the rotation for the Tiger series. And some of that was based on, do we have to cover a short outing from Sale? So we probably don't find out what the rotation is for Friday, Saturday, Sunday until after Thursday's day game. Because it probably depends on this game. If Ritchie gets knocked out today after 2, they're going to have to use length out of the pen, and that's going to alter the plans. So we'll see what happens. But Strider is going to be back at some point in time this weekend. So that was a fun one for me, fun crow for me to eat there. Updates on Schwellenbach and Waldrep. Waldrep is the good news. When they did the surgery initially for him, right? This was loose bodies in the right elbow. The post-surgery kind of report that we got was that his surgery was not as complicated and not as involved as Schwellenbach's was, right? Like sometimes you go in to remove the loose bodies, and 1, there may be more than you're expecting, or 2, there may be something like a bone spur you have to shave down, and so it's a little more of an involved surgery. Everything that we were told is that Waldrep's surgery was pretty straightforward. Probably just had a couple small loose bodies, they pulled him out, and he's good to go. He's going to throw a bullpen early next week. I've been told he is in Florida, so he's working down in Northport. We haven't seen him in the dugout. He's down in Florida already. And if he throws a bullpen early next week, and then starts doing more bullpens, and then live BP, and then a sim game, and then progresses to a rehab assignment, you're still looking at returning some point in time in mid to late June. Now, the thing to know with Waldrep is he does have a minor league option. So you're not going to be forced to move somebody else out of the rotation when Hurston Waldrep returns. They might. It kind of depends on what he looks like and what the guys in the rotation look like. If Grant Holmes is in the rotation, but he's struggling and they think Waldrep looks good and Holmes would be better back in that utility role in the bullpen, you could see a move there. It could be something if JR Ritchie stumbles between now and when Waldrop's back. They could option JR Ritchie back down to Gwinnett and they could use Hurston Waldrep. We'll see what happens. But if there's no setbacks, he's progressing to get back sometime in June. Spencer Schwellenbach is a little bit worse news. We don't know the extent of his surgery as compared to Waldrop's, just that Schwellenbach's surgery was more involved. There was no UCL repair. There wasn't like anything like that we're aware of. He's been seen in the dugout still. So he is with the team, but Walt Weiss revealed that he's not throwing. He has not yet begun throwing a baseball. And so because of that, there is no time frame for his return. And Weiss was asked yesterday, is he concerned about the elbow becoming a long-term problem for Walt Weiss? And honestly, like, he didn't say yes, but the quote wasn't incredibly encouraging. Quote, anytime pitchers go under the knife, there's concerns. This is a young athletic guy, and there's not a lot of mileage on that arm. He was a college shortstop, didn't pitch much in college. And as a reminder here, Schwellenbach was the closer at Nebraska. So when, like, he played shortstop, and then he was the closer. He wasn't like a Ohtani-type starter where he threw 100 pitches every fifth day or once a week or whatever. He was a closer. He was a reliever. Quote, I think that's in his favor. I'm hoping we see him sometime in the second half. He's a long ways out. Compared to what he said about Hurston Waldrep, that is not a ringing endorsement from Walt Weiss. And I think the proper expectations to have here is that we don't see Spencer Schwellenbach in 2026. Now, Walt Weiss did not say that. Walt Weiss did not say Schwellenbach would not be back. But I think proper expectations right now are we are not going to count on Spencer Schwellenbach to be here. It would be great if he was. And clearly, I'm hoping we see him sometime in the second half. He's a long way out. Is not closing the door on Schwellenbach coming back. But it's saying that you can't give a time frame if he's not throwing a baseball yet. You know, he had a more involved surgery some way. We don't know. Again, my speculation, just entirely speculation, is that they were shaving down a bone spur. And so that's more involved than just taking a couple loose bodies out and being done. And we've seen other guys who had the shave down a bone spur surgery take longer to come back. Carlos Rodon of the Yankees, October 15th, he had surgery to remove loose bodies and shave down a bone spur. That was October. This is the end of April, and he is still not back. I mean, he's on rehab and stuff. Like, he's not. He just threw his first rehab outing 4 days ago in high A. And his surgery was in mid-October. He threw 65 pitches, 1 hit, 4 strikeouts, 1 walk in late April, which is the 7th month after the surgery. Now, is that complicated by the fact that it's the off season versus the regular season? Yes, no, maybe. If Schwellenbach's on the same return time frame as Carlos Rodon, and again, we don't know if Rodon had some sort of setback or anything. If he did, it wasn't publicly reported. But if that's the same situation, and Schwellenbach had the surgery in February, 7 months from there is September, right? Is Schwellenbach back as a reliever in the playoffs? I mean, we don't know. We don't know exactly how much his surgery correlates with Rodon's surgery, how close they are. We don't know that a shaved down bone spur was the other thing in the surgery. But that should give you a time frame of if that's what happened, that would be why he's still not throwing and why the hope is that they get him sometime in the second half. Not a great place to be. And Walt Weiss did say that Schwellenbach said he thought he could currently throw, but the recovery process, the time frame dictated by the doctors and the medical staff was more rest for the arm before he began throwing. So maybe that's something. Maybe it's, hey, he can throw, but the medical team's not letting him, and so he won't require as long of a ramp up as Rodon did. Who knows? But that should kind of give you an idea of, it feels, as of now, Waldrep's going to come back sometime in June, maybe July 1st or whatever. Schwellenbach, I don't think we can count on him. On a note of injury returns, by the way, AJ Smith-Shawver's been throwing in Florida for the last couple weeks. I've seen him throwing off of a mound. I haven't heard if he's throwing BP or just like bullpens and stuff like that, but he is throwing, coming back from his Tommy John he had last June. internal brace, all that good stuff. He's another guy that I think if you see him this year, it's going to be maybe as a reliever in the final month of the year. And then he builds up over the offseason to work on being a starter in 27. He does have one minor league option left. I do think it's in Atlanta's best interest if he's ready to come back before the season ends, which we don't know. Put him in the bullpen. Save that option so that in 27, if his stuff is not fully back and he's not ready to be a starter at the major league level, you have the ability to option him down then. Don't pop the option this year for the final 3 weeks of the year. Throw him in the pen, figure it out. You get an extra bullpen arm in September anyway. Or you get an extra pitcher. It doesn't specify it's starter or bullpen. Just extra pitcher. And preserve the option for next season. All right, in just a minute, let's talk about Tarik Skubal. He pitches tonight. Let's talk about what he does, how big of a matchup that this is for the Braves, and what JR Ritchie needs to do against this Tigers offense. We'll do that next, right here on Braves Today. Tarik Skubal is one of the best pitchers in baseball, and I don't think I'm overstating that by saying he's probably top 3 right now. And that's who you get to face tonight. So all of his stats, like something that I look at a lot, and this is the same process that front offices take, is looking at actual versus expected, right? ERA estimators, looking at FIP, looking at expected ERA, looking at Sierra versus a guy's actual ERA. When it comes to hitters, looking at like expected slug and all of that. When it comes to a team, looking at run differential versus the record and what the Pythagorean record would be based off that run differential and all that. Tarik Skubal looks the same in just about every ERA estimator as he does an actual ERA. The last 4 seasons, 23, 24, 25 in this year. So I am counting this year in this, even though it's still early. His ERAs, 280, 239, 221, and this year he has a 272. And all of the peripherals, the ERA estimators, the expected ERA, the fielded independent pitching, all of that paint a picture of, in some of those years, a guy who was unlucky when he had an ERA in the 2s. 2023, he put up a 280 ERA. His expected ERA was a 231, and his fielding independent pitching was a 2.00. He legitimately has been... Him and Chris Sale are arguably 1 and 2 for the best left-handed pitchers in baseball in the last 24, 25, and this year. And obviously won the Cy Young in 24 and 25. And Sale won it in 24 and was on a pace to contend for it in 25 until he went down with that rib injury. But the things that he's doing are ridiculous. Tarik Skubal, the last 2 seasons, a strand rate, left on base rate, over 80%. Like when a runner got on base, 4 out of 5 times that dude was left on base. The MLB average is roughly 72%. 72 to 73. Skubal's at 80%. His strikeout rate the last 3 seasons, was over 30% in every year, with a walk rate under 5% in every year. Now, this year, he's backed up a little bit. He's only striking out 27% of batters. Still, walk rate still in the 4%. But it's also a very atypical profile. And by that, I mean, really, that's just me hating because I'm an anti-changeup guy. I don't love changeups. And Skubal throws a very good one, and it's his primary pitch. So he's a 5-pitch guy: changeup, 4-seam, sinker, slider, curveball. So he's throwing 2 fastballs. He has 2 breaking balls, and the changeup. His most used pitch is the changeup. 31% of the time. He sequences really well. So he's throwing a fastball about half the time between the 4-seam and the sinker. And there's a big handedness split on this. He's heavy sinker to lefties. He's more four-seam than sinker to righties. He averages 97 on the four-seamer last year. This year, he's averaging only 96.6 instead of 97.2. But the stuff plus grades on everything is absurd. His changeup this year has dropped to only a 121 stuff plus. Remember, 100 is league average. The changeup's a 121. The four-seam fastball is a 116. The sinker's a 114. The slider's 111. The curveball's only a 101. It's an absurd 116 stuff plus for the entire arsenal there. Last year, it was a 123 because both fastballs were over 120 on stuff plus. It's going to be really kind of funny to watch. By funny, it's going to be frustrating. Don't get me wrong. This is going to be a very frustrating game for Atlanta tonight. They're going to have to get his pitch count up. And Skubal he's been gettable a little bit this year. I talked about it yesterday. The time when he got, which isn't saying much. He gave up 4 runs. But it's something where if you can run his pitch count up, you can get him out of the game somewhat early. That Minnesota game, he didn't make it out of the 5th. He threw 95 pitches. He typically is sitting in the low to mid 90s on his pitch count this year. But it's a StatCast card that's incredibly red. He'll allow some guys to get on. The expected batting average against him is like 254. He'll give up some hard hit contact at times. Hard hit rates like 50%. But one of the best in baseball at chase. Tons of whiffs. And just an incredibly difficult matchup. Braves Today sponsor FanDuel has Atlanta as a 1.5 run underdog at home. So Skubal and the Tigers are favored. And they have this as a low-scoring game. They have this as 8 total runs. And if you figure that Detroit's supposed to win by a 1.5, that's a score of like 5-3. So the thing that JR Ritchie is going to have to do today, he's going to have to mix his fastballs very, very well. And he's going to have to get a ton of ground balls. I'm not critical, but I've pointed out before that Ritchie has not been the best at avoiding bats. That he doesn't always get the whiffs that you think that he should, or that his stuff looks like it should. And I think the goal today should be ground balls. Keep the ball on the ground. Let this Braves defense hoover everything up. But keeping the pitch count low, going deep into the game. We saw him do it last time. He gave Atlanta 7 innings last time. And I think that's something like that would be helpful. You have the depth in the pen if you need to pull him earlier. If this is something where they want to go a 5 and dive kind of situation, Carlos Carrasco can give you length. Jose Suarez, I guess, can give you length. I don't really want to use Jose Suarez in that situation, but Jose Suarez can give you length. He hasn't pitched since Saturday. He should be fully up and available. And it's just a scenario where you've got so much length available out of the pen that you don't have to ride Ritchie long. But the goal here for Atlanta should be to get Skubal out of the game as soon as possible. I want to assume it's going to be because they hang 4 or 5 runs on him and have bases loaded in the 5th with 1 out, and they go to a righty for Atlanta's left-handed hitting, or Atlanta's lefty optimized lineup or something. But for Ritchie, don't try to get the strikeouts, right? Go for the ground balls. And that doesn't always work. There's times you need to go for the strikeouts, right? You've got runners on the corners and no outs. You need to get a strikeout there so that you can then get a ground ball double play that ends the inning without a run scoring, right? There's times you need to go for a strikeout. But I think the goal for Ritchie is going to be quick innings, efficient innings. Don't let Skubal take breaks between innings as far as when he's in the dugout. Like you need to get in and out of the inning quickly so you can wear him down and get him out of the game. Because you're still at the point in the season where they're not going to push him 100-plus pitches unless he's got a no-hitter going. And let's just hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, Atlanta's not favored tonight, and I get it. They shouldn't be favored in this situation. But I still think the Braves can do this. I'm going to have to get over my dislike of changeups because that's obviously, we saw Perez last night. I feel like maybe I've underrated him a little bit because I don't fully appreciate the changeup. Tonight, we're going to see Skubal. Again, this season so far, his changeup's his number one pitch. So let's see what happens. Reminder, we are not going to have a standard show tomorrow because that is such an early start for the day game. It wouldn't make a ton of sense to drop a podcast episode at noon Eastern when the game starts at 12:15 Eastern. So no standard Braves Today episode tomorrow. We're going to have a scouting report in the morning. We'll be back on Friday, and I've got plans for a bonus episode on Saturday, so stay tuned for that. But that'll do it for Braves Today for Wednesday, April 29th. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time on Braves Today.